So we are now in week 6, which means we've got 3 weeks left, week 6, 7, and 8. So we are moving towards the end. So this week we are going to be focusing on solving quadratic equations. So this week you've got your discussion, your assignment. There is an exam this week instead of the quiz. So it's going to be longer than your quizzes, and it's going to cover more than one section. So we'll get to that. First off, we only have 2 sections that we're covering this week, 6.7, which is solving equations using the zero product rule, and 9.3, which is the quadratic formula. We are skipping sections 9.1 and 9.2, and you should be completely fine to skip those. Just the only thing in previous sections that you may find different with the book is that the book will simplify square roots. What I want you guys is to just find the decimal version of the square root. So you don't need to worry about simplifying square roots. Just put in your calculator, find the decimal version. So the big ideas is we're going to be looking at the zero product rule, and then we're going to solve by factoring, and then solve by the quadratic formula. And those are the 2 most common ways to solve quadratic equations. So as I mentioned, you have your discussion, you have your assignments, the ungraded practice assignment and the assignment, and then the exam. So the discussion this week is quite open-ended. This is a good time to kind of check in and see what you're struggling with and where additional help might be needed. So you have several options for the discussion. I do recommend trying to address all 3 of these just so you make sure you have a complete post. But you can ask a question relevant to the course. And of course, if you just ask a question that's 1 sentence, it doesn't hit this word length, which is why I recommend doing more than one of these things. So questions relevant to the course would be relevant to the algebra that we're learning, and you can work through a problem from the textbook and ask for feedback to see if there's anything that you might have done wrong. If you're going to do that, choose one of the assigned practice problems. Don't just pick any problem from the textbook because you might pick something that we haven't learned how to do. So choose from one of the assigned practice problems if you're going to do that. And then just reflect on topics that you've struggled with. You know, what are you really struggling with in this course or even in this week? So in order to make sure you get the full 75 word minimum, make sure you're specific and detailed. So check your word length before you submit it. When you're giving an example, working through a problem, make sure you're showing all of your work. And so you can take a photo and put the photo in the classroom in the discussion, and that's a good way to kind of get some feedback on what you're doing. And as far as replies go, you can try to answer somebody's question. If somebody's struggling with something, you can provide them maybe some additional resources that helped you out. Or maybe say, hey, I struggle with that too. Here's what's helped me. You know, if somebody works through a problem and they ask for feedback, say, okay, this is where I'm getting stuck, or I don't understand this step, try to help them out. So this is a true collaboration where we're going to see where are people struggling and try to help each other out and really work together so that everybody is getting their questions answered. For the assignments, the ungraded practice assignment comes from the part of it comes from the problem recognition exercises on page 463, and then the other part comes from 9.3. If you choose for the discussion to do problems from 9.3, only pick the ones that I have particularly pointed out here, 9 through 33 odds. If you try to do any others, it may not be, they may be using a different method than what you have learned so far, because the start of that section goes through some review problems from like 9.1 and 9.2, and we haven't done that. So make sure you're sticking with the practice assignments for those. Your week 6, I just hit my microphone. The week 6 assignment. This one's actually pretty easy. A lot of people do pretty well on here. You have 2 graded problems. One of them is to solve by factoring, and then the other one is to solve using the quadratic formula. So make sure you're showing all of your work. If you decide to type up this week's work, Microsoft Word actually has a shortcut to the quadratic formula in the equation editor, so that could help you out. Otherwise, you can do it by hand on paper, and then you don't have to worry about trying to make sure everything's typed up correctly. And this should say exam, not quiz there, but you have an exam this week, and it is 17 questions. It is untimed, and there are 5 short answer and 12 multiple choice. So, it's a little changes every week. But what's important is that this is going to be covering 2 weeks of material. So that's what makes it more of an exam. The quizzes are usually mostly focusing on 1 week. The exams are covering multiple weeks. So this covers weeks 5 and 6. So you're going to be doing factoring. You're going to be solving by factoring. You'll be solving using the quadratic formula. You'll be looking at the rules of exponents. You'll be multiplying polynomials. Actually, that's part of week 4 too. So I really should say that this is weeks 4, 5, and 6. 4, 5, and 6. Some simple interest formulas. That's going to be thrown in there as well. Just a little review. So those are the topics that you're going to have. It's going to be mostly factoring. Because that's this kind of the second most important part of the class, is besides solving for x, is doing factoring. And so for the suggested schedule, since we're only covering 2 sections, you can see that there's a big blank spot for this whole area here where I don't really have anything on my schedule for you guys. And so what I recommend that you use that extra time for is by catching up. So if you have missing work, use that extra time to work on your missing assignments. If you want to redo your assignments, that's a great time to spend doing your redos and turning in your redos. You can also start working ahead if you want, because you have extra time as well. So you can say, okay, I'm going to start reading the material for the next week. So use that time wisely. Don't let it go to waste, especially if you find yourself a little behind. So this is kind of your catch-up week. And so that's it. So that's what you have going on for the week, the details on the discussion, the exam, all that. So do you have any questions for me?
No questions.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining me. I'm glad that I wasn't just talking to myself.
No problem.
Showing up to these and asking questions if you do have questions, but since you don't have any, that's fine. So thank you so much. Actually, I should take a look at my calendar and let you know when I'm going to be doing my next session. Let me pull that up. Tomorrow at 6 p.m., same time tomorrow, I'm going to be going over 6.7, which is solving using the zero product property. So that's basically going to be solving by factoring. And I already have a video on the quadratic formula in the classroom. So if you attend tomorrow's, you'll then have the first half, and then the video for the second half is in the classroom. So you'll be all set for that. So, all right. Thank you again for attending, and hopefully I will see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
All right.